Welcome to NTD Good Morning.
Here are today's top stories. Residents in California also experience heavy rains, flooding, and massive power outages as over 120 million Americans are set to travel this holiday season.
The U.S. is pursuing a third oil tanker in international waters near Venezuela as tensions increase in the Caribbean.
A senior Russian general was killed in an apparent car bombing in Moscow. Russian investigators say they are looking for motives behind the attack.
Highlights from Turning Point USA's final day of Americafest with speeches from Vice President J.D. Vance, a special guest, and much more.
With Christmas only 3 days away, tools to mediate family dinners are more important than ever. A Johns Hopkins University professor offers her tips.
A community in Michigan is helping lift the spirits of children spending a Christmas in the hospital. The annual Moonbeams for Sweet Dreams tradition returns to brighten the holidays.
This is NTD Good Morning, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here are Stephanie Cox and Carrie Dunst.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
I'm Alice Tang in for Steph. Today is Monday, December 22nd. This is NTD Good Morning. And today's top news, severe flash flooding swept through Redding, California yesterday, leaving at least one dead.
Heavy rains also flooded highways and roads, causing several vehicles to be stranded.
The mayor of Redding said that local police and fire crews have been performing water rescues while workers clear roads and utility companies work to restore power.
Officials are urging motorists to exercise extreme caution and to avoid flooded streets.
Another coastal storm is expected to hit the West Coast on Christmas Eve, with Southern California bearing the brunt of the storm.
Authorities are expecting potential for flash flooding and mudslides, especially across wildfire-burned scars.
Utility crews in San Francisco are working to restore power to thousands of residents and businesses. Pacific Gas and Electric says a widespread outage on Saturday affected about 130,000 customers.
Utility company says the outage was caused by a fire at an electrical substation. Early this morning, there were still about 10,000 customers without their service.
And the mayor of San Francisco took to social media to address those still affected by the outage.
They're slowly chipping away at it. We expect full restoration by 2 p.m. tomorrow, according to PG&E. So take care of yourselves, be safe. And as we head into Tuesday night, there is another storm coming. So if you have power right now, I want you to get prepared with flashlights, with some food, because we just don't know what's going to hit us in terms of weather and wind on Tuesday night. So we could see more power outages later this week.
The first outages were reported at around 1 p.m. Saturday, with the grid stabilized by 4:30 p.m., halting any additional outages. Local media reported that the fire was under control by 6 p.m.
The outage occurred during a busy weekend for holiday shoppers, bringing major congestion after traffic lights lost power. Local media also reported that robo-taxi services, included Waymo, stalled in the city following the outage.
PG&E said it expects to restore power to remaining customers no later than 2 p.m. today. The cause of the fire is still under investigation. The U.S. Coast Guard is pursuing an oil tanker in international waters near Venezuela, according to the U.S. officials.
The official told the Epoch Times yesterday that the Coast Guard is pursuing a vessel that's part of Venezuela's illegal sanctions evasion.
This is the third time in less than 2 weeks that the U.S. government has intercepted a vessel after it departed from Venezuela.
Officials didn't give specific information about the vessel, including its type, its name, or its manufacturer.
And it comes as tensions are increasing in the Caribbean, with the United States building a naval presence in the region. President
Trump is accusing Nicolas Maduro's socialist regime of running an international drug trafficking ring. And it was just on Saturday that the U.S. intercepted a second oil tanker in the region. Here's more on that.
U.S. Homeland Security Chief Kristi Noem published video on Saturday said to show the U.S. intercepting an oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela in international waters. Her post on X came with a statement confirming the move by the Coast Guard days after President Donald Trump announced a blockade of all sanctioned oil tankers entering and leaving Venezuela. Noem also said the U.S. will, quote, continue to pursue the illicit movement of sanctioned oil that is used to fund narco-terrorism in the region. Maritime risk management company Vanguard said the vessel was believed to be the Panama-flagged Centuries, which was intercepted east of Barbados in the Caribbean Sea. A White House spokeswoman said on X the tanker was a falsely flagged vessel used by Venezuela to traffic stolen oil. Centuries was loaded in Venezuela under a false name and carrying crude oil bound for China, internal documents from the oil seller Venezuelan state oil company PDVSA show. It's part of a so-called shadow fleet of tankers that disguise their location, used by buyers of Venezuelan oil to get around U.S. sanctions. PDVSA did not immediately respond to requests for comment. In a statement, Venezuela's government denounced the interception as a serious act of international piracy. It's the second time in recent weeks that the U.S. has gone after a tanker near the South American country. It comes as Trump builds a pressure campaign on Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. U.S. strikes on suspected drug vessels in waters near the country have killed at least 100 people, while military forces have ramped up their presence in the region. Trump has said the U.S. will soon start land strikes on Venezuela.
A Russian general was killed in the apparent car bombing in Moscow.
Russian officials are blaming Ukraine for the latest assassination of a senior military officer.
Officials said Lieutenant General Fanil Sarvarov died this morning, and he was killed when an explosive device under a car detonated.
Sarvarov ran the Armed Forces Operational Training Department, and state media said the 56-year-old had been in the position for 9 years.
Russian officials say investigators are considering various motives for the attack, including a theory it was organized by Ukrainian special forces.
Several prominent Russians have been killed by explosive devices or shot dead in Moscow since Russia's invasion of Ukraine going back to 2022.
World leaders are working to stop the fighting in Ukraine and Gaza. We have President Trump and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer discussed the US-led efforts for peace in a pre-Christmas call yesterday.
The Prime Minister's office said they discussed efforts by nations calling themselves the, quote, coalition of the willing to support any peace deal for a just and lasting end to Russia's war in Ukraine. The leaders also spoke about the situation on the ground in Gaza.
Trump and Starmer also discussed the appointment of the new British ambassador to the United States, Christian Turner. He replaces Lord Peter Mandelson, who was removed over his links to Jeffrey Epstein.
American, European, and Ukrainian officials held talks in Florida over the last 3 days aimed at ending the conflict in Ukraine. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff said it was, quote, productive and constructive.
President Trump has been pressuring Ukraine and Russia to come to an agreement on ending the nearly 4-year conflict as soon as possible.
But Russia wants to keep the Ukrainian areas it has seized, and Kiev has refused to cede ground. And thousands of people gathered in Australia yesterday to honor the victims of the terrorist attack that killed 15 last week. Officials in Israel also honored the victims as the Jewish community celebrates Hanukkah. NTD's Jason Perry has the update.
Thousands of people gathered at Bondi Beach in Australia on Sunday for a mass vigil held for victims of the terrorist attack that killed 15 people and injured more than 40. A Jewish rabbi and his wife placed a large candle on the stage before the president of the New South Wales Jewish Board of Deputies spoke to the crowd. And he said he had a message to share from the man who disarmed one of the shooters that day.
And friends, Ahmed has asked me to pass on the following message to us all. Quote, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. Today, I stand with you, my brothers and sisters." Thank you, Ahmed.
Many of the people at the event wore white, which was said to show that light will always prevail over darkness. One man attempted to attend the memorial while wearing a keffiyeh scarf. However, Australian police escorted him away from the event. The scarf is seen as a symbol to show support for Palestine. Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, Israeli President Isaac Herzog said this about the Australian Jewish community.
Instead of lighting the first candle, our sisters and brothers ran for cover. The rise of Jew hatred across the world is a global emergency. This is an urgent call to action to prevent the next catastrophe.
15 candles were lit to honor the victims of the Bondi Beach shooting attack. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, also in Jerusalem, said this while at a Hanukkan ceremony.
The Chabad community and all of the people of Israel have gone through a great tragedy in Sydney, caused by vile murderers who killed them because they were Jews, and only because they were Jews.
Netanyahu said the spirit of the people of Israel was not broken, and it will not be broken. Jason Perry, NTD News.
Coming up, speeches from Vice President J.D. Vance, a special guest, and much more wrap up the final day of Americafest. Hosted by Turning Point USA, NTD's Tiffany Meyer has the highlights from Phoenix, Arizona.
And the Democrats have enjoyed success and momentum in recent elections, but what might their fate be in the upcoming midterms and the 2028 presidential election? We're going to speak with Mike Leon for analysis. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to NTD. Americafest has just come to a close, and the 4-day conference was held by Turning Point USA.
NTD was on site to capture the weekend's biggest moments, including powerful speeches and even a surprise appearance. Tiffany Meyer was in Arizona with highlights from the event's final day. Have a look.
I'm here in Phoenix, Arizona, where Turning Point USA has just wrapped up 4 days of Americafest. Some of the biggest names in the conservative circles taking the stage. On the final day, speakers included Kirk, Donald Trump Jr., and Vice President J.D. Vance, who earlier received Kirk's endorsement for the 2028 presidential election. The enthusiasm here has been palpable across all 4 days, with attendees passionate about carrying forth Charlie Kirk's legacy. And to end on a high note, even a surprise special guest took the stage. Here's that moment, plus some other highlights.
Hello, how are you? So those of you who know, Charlie was very good about having a surprise for every AmFest. And we are so blessed to have you. We are so grateful.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. I am honored to be here. Thank you for having me. I have the utmost respect and admiration for our president. He has, I don't know if he even knows this, but he's given so many people hope that there's a chance to beat the bad guys and to win and to do it with your head held high and your integrity intact.
He says, "Make America great again," because every American is invited. So if you love America, if you want all of us to be richer, stronger, safer, and prouder, you have a home on this team. I didn't bring a list of conservatives to denounce or to deplatform. And I don't really care if some people out there, I'm sure we'll have the fake news media, denounce me after this speech. But let me just say, the best way to honor Charlie is that none of us here should be doing something after Charlie's death that he himself refused to do in life. He invited all of us here. Charlie invited all of us here for a reason. because he believed that each of us, all of us, had something worth saying, and he trusted all of you to make your own judgment.
This was the first major conference for Turning Point USA since the assassination of its founder, Charlie Kirk. But if the enthusiasm and numbers here are any indicator, this movement isn't going anywhere. As the speeches on stage have said, it's only growing. And with Erica Kirk continuing Charlie's mission, AmFest 2025 drew in large numbers of female attendees, many of those young women, crediting Erica with drawing them in. And in the spirit of Charlie, several debate stations popped up inside and outside the venue. For as Charlie famously said, when people stop talking, that's when you get violence. That's when civil war happens. In Phoenix, Arizona, for NTD News, I'm Tiffany Meyer.
Steve Lance and Tiffany Meyer sat down yesterday with Joshua Phillips. He is a senior investigative reporter for the Epoch Times. He also has a new documentary just came out about Charlie Kirk's legacy. Let's watch that interview.
Josh, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, always a pleasure, and great being here.
Now, this is actually the largest Americafest in Turning Point history. What has been your experience so far this year? What does this turnout signal to you?
Well, it's incredible. I've heard they have about 30,000 people here, 10,000 on the wait list if people choose to leave. And yeah, last year was 20,000. So I would say this is part of the Charlie Kirk effect. Charlie actually inspired a lot of people, and I really do believe that I was wondering what the effect was going to be. What's the future turning point? It really does feel stronger than it's ever been.
And Josh, one of the main reasons that we're doing this interview is to talk about the amazing film that you've put together. It's called Truth Under Fire: The Framing of Charlie Kirk. Talk to us about the subtitle.
Yeah, so this actually started out so it expanded a bit. It started first into an investigation into how Charlie Kirk was framed, because, of course, acts of violence often have reasons behind them. And it seems that somebody was very brainwashed enough or hated someone enough to kill them. Now, Donald Trump actually came up with an order, calling for investigations into this, a type of conspiracy against rights. And what he's alleging effectively is that there's a system in place to, first of all, defame people, then dox them, expose their home address, their personal information, mark them for attack, and then make examples out of them, saying, hey, I don't want to go speak at that event because Antifa might show up and they might beat me. I don't want to go make my opinions heard on, publicly at my school, even because I might get attacked and I might get expelled from my school. I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to get hit pieces done to me by the media. And what this is being framed at is it effectively a conspiracy against constitutional rights, something that scares you out of engaging in freedom of speech, something that scares you out of engaging in freedom of assembly, and in that effect works as a form of really political terrorism. Now, Charlie Kirk, I believe, was a victim of this, and so the investigation set out to find how was Charlie Kirk framed, what were the organizations that framed him, how does the system work, what is this machine that cancels people, doxes people, then marks them for attack. And from there it actually expanded into, it was a moment I had, and you two were at the Charlie Kirk's Memorial as well, actually right here in Arizona. It was a moment I had walking into the stadium, onto the stadium floor, and it was like perfect timing. Things went kind of quiet, and everybody raised their signs, I am Charlie Kirk, remember Charlie Kirk. And I had a moment, I was like, wow, you know what, I'm witnessing something that I've never witnessed before. I really had the sense that for the first time in my life, I'm seeing really in my own two eyes what a martyr looks like. This is what happens when somebody in their death is more powerful than in life, that he inspired people through that. And I wanted to capture that as well, to make sure that's not forgotten to history.
I want to expand on the media point that you were talking about. When we look at the broader media environment, how do you believe the media painted Charlie in the years leading up to his death?
So, when I do investigations, my first step is I trace things back to the origin, then I trace it forward. So the origin of the hit pieces on Charlie was 2017. That was after the Charlottesville attack, right? So what happened at the time, you had a group of individuals who were tearing down Confederate statues, and you had counter-protesters. They went to Charlottesville. Then you had the very extreme types show up, the Antifa And then you have the crazy alt-right guys with the tiki torches. Everyone remembers that probably. Then you had the kid who drove his car through the crowd, killed a young woman, and, the rest is history. The media then questioned Donald Trump, do you condemn this? Will you condemn the alt-right? Will you say something bad about him? And Trump said, yeah. So what Donald Trump said effectively was this. You know what? There were fine people on both sides. There were people who, wanted the Confederate statues down, the people who tried to stop it. And they were peaceful protesters. But then you had the crazy people. And they came out beating each other with baseball bats. And they were vicious, and it was terrible. And I condemn them absolutely. Donald Trump condemned the alt-right that day. And I'd say actually the alt-right died in Charlottesville that day because they lost presidential support very, very directly. The media took that and they twisted it. They said Donald Trump called them very fine people, and he refused to condemn the alt-right, both of which were lies. That was a false narrative promoted. They misquoted him, took it out of context, and then actually lied to people about Donald Trump not condemning the alt-right. And then they went to Trump's supporters. They framed MAGA as being an alt-right fascist movement because Donald Trump didn't disavow them, therefore they're all alt-right, which is not true, but that's what they said. And then they said, well, Charlie Kirk, at the time, still very young. I don't realize how young he was, actually. Still very young and, kind of really part of the MAGA movement. Yeah, people who supported Trump in his community, students at the time, they said, well, will you disavow the Trump supporters because they're the alt-right? Donald Trump didn't condemn them, therefore he's a Nazi. And if you don't condemn them, therefore you're a Nazi. And Charlie Kirk said, no, I'm not going to condemn them. There's nothing wrong with them. They're not extreme. They just like the president of the United States. What's your problem? They framed him using that. And what you had then was a game of telephone, right? You say one thing to one person, they say it to the next person, to the next person. It went from Charlie Kirk does not disavow the Trump supporters, therefore they're Nazis, therefore he has Nazis in his midst, to Charlie Kirk is a Nazi. And that was how the narrative was framed. Over time, as the media began putting this in their headlines, Charlie Kirk has extremists in his midst, you started then having official organizations taking and making reports about him. According to the New York Times, he has these people in his midst. According to this newspaper, he has people in his midst. According to this, therefore, this is an extremist movement. Therefore, he's the leader of an extremist movement. Therefore, this is the narrative. And that's how they framed him. And then you have these agitated youth who, they believe in this whole worldview. They're sitting, I don't know, in their basements or whatever else. And they're saying, this guy's baby Hitler. This guy's going to grow up one day and he's going to become Hitler. And what do you do to baby Hitler? Well, you kill him, right? That's what happened to Charlie Kirk.
It's a lot there, Josh. With regard to sort of the picture that you painted in terms of these leftist, Marxist movements, these underpinnings that are trying to suppress, ultimately, people's speech and thoughts, Charlie was ultimately a victim. He paid the ultimate price to be silenced with a bullet through his neck. But prior to that, one thing that sort of made Charlie different was that he did not succumb to a lot of those demands and a lot of that pressure. It's not as easy for your average student or person to have that type of willpower and strength. Do you see the conservative movement, the Turning Point USA family, carrying on that legacy?
Yeah. I mean, look at this place. After Charlie got killed, I had a lot of people tell me, hey, Josh, you should be careful speaking at events. I was supposed to speak at an event in South Korea with Charlie just a few days before he got killed, actually. It was one of the last events he did, that in Japan. And, I was scheduled to speak at another event that same week. People were calling me up, Josh, be careful. We don't want to see this happen to you. And I had a moment. I was like, should I be careful? And then I actually thought about Charlie, and I was like, you know what? If someone told Charlie, hey, someone's going to try to kill you, be quiet, I don't think he would have done it. I knew Charlie. In fact, even more than that, I think if someone were to show Charlie, this is what you will achieve in your death. You're going to have churches doubling in capacity. You're going to have young kids turning back to their faith. You're going to have people remembering what they stand for. Will you die to do this? And Charlie would have. I know Charlie. He would have said, yeah, kill me. Because, I'll be a martyr, and that is what I live for. And so, it inspired me, and I think a lot of people here, it inspired them in the same way. I've seen it in kids talking to youth, talking to some of the youth leaders at the schools, not only did they not shrink in respect to, hey, geez, there's crazy people out there looking to kill people for doing this. You just had some turning point chapter head get killed, actually. It's the opposite. They're saying, you know what? I need to be brave because other people were brave before me. I need to stand up because other people stood up before me, and I'm not going to shrink into the shadows and be too afraid to stand for what I stand for.
Joshua Phillip, Truth Under Fire, excellent insights into Charlie Kirk's life and legacy. Greatly appreciate you joining us.
Anytime. Thank you.
And the Democrats have scored wins in high-profile mayoral races in New York City and Miami and in governor's races in New Jersey and Virginia. The question now, how will they fare in the next year's midterms and the presidential election in 2028? Joining us for a look ahead at the rising stars and the platforms of the Democrats is Mike Leon. He's host of the podcast, Can We Please Talk? Mike, happy Monday morning to you. Good to see you. A lot to chop through here in a short amount of time, so I'm going to get right to it. What has been working for the Democrats, particularly Eileen Higgins, taking Miami's mayoral office, hasn't been held by a Democrat in 30 years?
Yeah, Kerry, good to see you as always. I think the biggest thing that's been working for Democrats right now is just the fact that there's a Republican in office and the Republicans control Congress, and we haven't seen too much legislation pass through. We've seen some impasses. We've seen a government shutdown. We've seen mixed messaging. So whenever you have a new administration come in and then everyone starts to look at the midterms, you always see percentage point swings, whether it be in purple districts that now lean Democratic. These 25 elections, though, Kerry, I think we're reading a little too much into it. I don't want to do the typical Republican strategist thing of like, well, these are all blue anyway, so they were going to go blue anyway. I mean, you just mentioned Miami's mayor hasn't flipped in over 30 years. But I think the big takeaway has been voter turnout, like in California's Prop 50 thing. There was millions of people that turned out for that. I think the New Jersey win by Mikey Sherrill, it was really surprising to me as a Rutgers kid and a Jersey guy, because Jack Ciattarelli has been in New Jersey politics for so long, that Mikey Sherrill coming in, winning that district, she represents the district in Essex, but she wins the governor's race by so many percentage points. I think that's been more surprising right now, but we got to see we got a long way before the midterms in 26. We'll see what happens in the first half of 2026.
Yeah, and I think I might have misspoke. Of course, Higgins is the first Democrat to hold the mayoral office in Miami in 30 years. It's been held by Republicans. And it used to be a red state during the Bush years. Somehow it flipped red. And now, everything is potentially on the line as we go to the midterms. So what are the Democrats' strategy? What are the key issues? What should they be doing to try to flip either chamber or both?
Yeah, well, I think the big thing, Kerry, you and I talked about this in the 24 election. I had to go back and watch it, Kerry. We were talking about how podcasts have shaped election and new media. And I think what you're seeing right now, in addition to issues, let's say, that are happening across the country, right, that Democrats have been talking about, like look at what ICE is doing with respect to immigration, enforcement, et cetera, the economy. Are you still paying less than like what President Trump promised? In terms of running on those issues, those are going to be the issues. But in terms of how they're doing it, Kerry, you and I talked about this. President Trump, during the 24 campaign cycle, he found everybody that has a microphone and any podcaster with millions of subs, from playing golf with Bryson DeChambeau to going on Aiden Ross's podcast to doing all these things with Jake Paul and Logan Paul. So I think Democrats are starting to find their footing in terms of doing that with new media outlets. I saw Representative Seth Moulton, who's now running for Senate to replace Ed Markey there. He was recently on a popular influencer show. So I think they're starting to lean into a little bit more of that and saturating the market with that. I think campaign managers are starting to realize that we have to play in this new media space, because if you don't play in it, you're going to get swallowed by it. Going to the traditional outlets and doing a sit-down interview with the CNN, Foxes, and MSNBCs of the world just doesn't push out the message as much as influencers across social media can drive your message and your platform a little bit out faster. So I think it's an issues combination thing, but I think they're also embracing the new media aspect of it and starting to hit the ground running on the social media front.
And of course, candidate strength is one of the most important, if not the most important thing. So wide open slate now. Who do you expect to rise out of the Democrat side in the primaries?
Kerry, you saved the best for last. This is the problem with Democrats right now. So, I mean, if you look at the New Hampshire polling, right, you got Pete Buttigieg leading that. But if you talk to any Democratic, at least a progressive Democratic strategist, they'll tell you that Pete Buttigieg has no chance, because He doesn't have the black vote, and the black vote and even some Latino vote is what you really need. You need a true coalition if you're going to try to, take 2028 by storm, or at least let's go with 26. You'd have to look at each district specifically. But in terms of the presidential, I mean, it's so early. I mean, obviously you got the Gavin Newsoms and Kamala Harris hasn't ruled things out. But do Democrats really want to retread somebody like that? Somebody that's a little bit more in the middle? Are they going to alienate the progressive wing of the party? Are they going to try to come into the middle? I mean, if they look at the 25 elections, what you've seen with respect to Eileen Higgins and with respect to Zohran Mamdani is that they haven't alienated that part. And both of those candidates are a little bit further to the left, for lack of a better term. So do they start to incorporate that? Do they start to run some more moderate candidates? I mean, that's the problem. If you look at their roster, if you look at J.B. Pritzker, if you look at Governor Shapiro, each of them has their own respective issues. I still think the war in Gaza has not been ended. I know we had a ceasefire in place, but that ceasefire has been broken numerous times by both sides. So what happens with that? That could be an issue. That definitely, hit President Biden and Kamala Harris, respectively, in the face with respect to just Michigan, if you just look at that as an example. So what are going to be the issues going into each specific race in 26? And then in 28, I just don't know who Democrats can prop up. But like anything in politics, you really don't get a candidate to emerge until you try to see them under fire and come through all of those primaries.
It's a lot to look out for, Mike. I think most interesting might be if the Democrats find someone just totally outside of the current political arena. We saw that with Obama and with Trump when, Obama was a freshman senator. So a lot to look forward to. We're going to have a lot to talk to over the next couple of years. Mike Leon, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Kerry.
And it may be the most wonderful time of the year, but it can also be stressful on various levels.
Yeah, that's right. The holiday travel season is underway, so expect to see lots of traffic and long wait times. Here are a few tips, though, to beat the rush.
The year 2025 is ending on a historic note. AAA estimates a record-setting 122.4 million Americans will travel at least 50 miles from home.
You've got this 2-week period when people are coming and going during different times.
AAA says nearly 110 million will drive, just over 8 million will fly, and close to 5 million will take other forms of travel like buses or trains. For those getting behind the wheel this holiday season, a basic rule of thumb: the sooner you leave, the better.
Early mornings are the best. Those are the times that you're going to have the lighter traffic. Also, you don't have the buildup and more opportunities for there to be crashes or construction later in the day.
If you're heading to the airport, be proactive before pulling up to the front doors.
Do everything you can before you get to the airport. Reserve that parking. Check into that flight. Prepay for checked baggage. It's really going to save you time and heartache when you get there.
And as for those procrastinators who may still be looking for a last-minute bargain on a plane ticket,
there's always weird things going on with airfare, so you can probably find a cheap deal to fly. But is there value in that flight? Is the layover 3 times longer than it normally would be? Is it going to take you 3 times longer to get to your destination?
Coming up, we look at what the CDC is saying about this year's flu, with more than 1,900 dead and this season, including 3 children.
And a community is helping lift the spirits of children who have to spend the holidays in the hospital. The annual Moonbeams for Sweet Dreams tradition returns to a children's hospital in Michigan. We have that story and more. We'll be right back. Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. I'm Carrie Dunst. If you're just joining us now, here are some of today's top headlines. Utility crews in San Francisco are working to restore power to thousands of residents and businesses after a widespread outage on Saturday. A fire at an electrical substation knocked out power for about 130,000 customers, with about 10,000 still without power this morning. Further north, residents in Redding, California, experienced flash flooding, leaving at least 1 dead. The heavy rains flooded highways and roads, leaving several vehicles stranded. Another coastal storm is heading for the West Coast on Christmas Eve, with Southern California likely to take the hardest hit. And a Russian general was killed in an apparent car bombing in Moscow. Russian officials are blaming Ukraine for the latest assassination of a senior military officer. Officials said Lieutenant General Fanil Sarvarov died this morning. Russian officials say investigators are considering various motives for the attack, including a theory it was organized by Ukrainian special forces. And the U.S. Coast Guard is pursuing an oil tanker in international waters near Venezuela. A U.S. official told the Epoch Times yesterday that the vessel is part of Venezuela's illegal sanctions evasion, and it comes as tensions are increasing in the Caribbean, with the U.S. building up a naval presence in the region and striking alleged drug boats. And the holiday travel season is underway, with AAA estimating a record-setting 122 million Americans will travel at least 50 miles from home. With 110 million expected to drive, 8 million are going to hit the skies, and around 5 million taking other forms of travel like buses or trains. Experts say to leave early if driving and to be proactive when heading to the airport to make sure your travel experience remains worry-free. Those are this morning's top headlines. With that, Alice, over to you.
Thanks, Carrie, for the recap. As families gather, travel, and celebrate the holidays, doctors are warning about surging cases of influenza, with at least 1,900 people having died from the flu nationwide this season, including 3 children. The CDC says that 2 of those children's deaths were reported in just the last week. Here are the details.
At the DC Public Health Lab, doctors are busy testing diseases that could become a public health concern.
The really only time that people see us is when there's a public health emergency.
Dr. Jocelyn Hauser is the director. She says doctors' offices and hospitals around the country send them swabs collected from patients.
We receive those samples and log them into our information system.
Those results are then sent to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. This year, the CDC is particularly concerned about growing cases of influenza. The latest data released Friday shows there have been at least 4.6 million flu cases so far this season, 49,000 hospitalizations, and 1,900 deaths in the U.S. alone. The dominant strain causing the surge in illnesses is subclade K, a mutation of influenza A.
We think that this clade K virus is evading population immunity, meaning more people are susceptible to infection.
While doctors in the CDC say the best protection is to get the flu vaccine, Johns Hopkins University professor Andrew Pekosh says this year the shot may not be enough.
It has mutations that may allow it to evade some, but not all, of the influenza vaccine-induced protection.
As millions of people prepare to travel and gather this week for the holidays, there's growing concern illnesses may spike, and cases are surging around the globe. Children, adults 65 and older, and those with underlying medical conditions are particularly vulnerable to the flu. Medical experts are urging everyone 6 months and older to get the flu vaccine.
A hospital in Michigan is asking the public to raise their flashlights for a special cause this holiday season.
That's right. The Moonbeams for Sweet Dreams tradition is back, and it's lighting up the night outside Corewell Health Children's in Royal Oak, Michigan.
Each evening at 8 p.m., volunteers gather outside the hospital for 10 minutes. They shine beams of light toward the pediatric rooms above, sending a luminous message of hope and joy.
To be stuck in the hospital and feel like the world is moving on without you outside feels a little bit isolating, a little lonely, feels like maybe you've been forgotten in the hustle and bustle of the holiday season.
The kids return the sentiment with their own light bursts, directed toward those below.
Throughout the day, we pass out flashlights to the kids so that they get a chance to shine their light back down at all of the community members standing outside in the cold that showed up for them here. And it's just a wonderful way. It's a point of connection for lights coming out of the hospital, lights going into the hospital.
They're here kind of by themselves or with just close family, and that's it for days. And, you know, it's just a big group of people that they don't know, but they see the love being sent by the lights.
It helps the people inside here not feel so alone, and the community members being able to be a part of bringing that Christmas joy to the people that are in here.
And they get so excited. You know, if they're here for a couple days, they look forward to 8 o'clock. They try to guess how many fire trucks might be outside that night. They want to wonder how big the crowd is going to be, if they're going to see Santa. Bring it over.
Corewell has been overseeing the Moonbeams event since 2017.
So we really wanted to come up with a way where we could remind the families and the kids and the patients in the hospital that we're still thinking of them, that we're here for them, that we're standing with them.
This year's edition got underway on December 9th and runs until 2 days before Christmas.
Well, that's just heartwarming and so special. I love traditions like that where it's just so easy to participate, but you can be with your community and bring so much joy to all those kids. I mean, what a wonderful tradition.
It's like a mini concert. And Christmas is in 3 days, and while it's usually a joyful time of the year, conversations with family members can sometimes get a little tricky.
But a professor at Johns Hopkins University is going to join us with tips on how to navigate those challenging conversations. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to NTD. Christmas is in 3 days and it's usually a joyful time of the year, but sometimes conversations with family members can get a bit challenging. And joining us to discuss how to navigate complicated discussions during Christmas family gatherings is conscious leadership strategist, author, and speaker, Dr. Jacqueline Campbell. Good morning, doctor. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing really well. How are you?
So the first question, and usually in a single parent household or if there's a step parent in a mix, it can become a bit complicated. So how can grown adult children in these families connect to their parents?
Right, but you have a good point because this is a hot topic around the holidays. Family gets together, siblings you haven't seen in a long time, and people tend to want to be happy on a holiday, but then we're suppressing our truth. And so when we stop suppressing our truth, it just makes it a whole lot easier because we're not suppressing something that's trying to come outside of us. We're pushing it down, right? Suppressing it. That actually closes up our brain, and we can't have as much awareness to be able to verbally explain exactly what we're thinking and feeling, which makes everything a whole lot easier. So the first thing is if we stop suppressing it, and then we accept what we need to say, so then we express it. But the other thing is we need to be comfortable being graceful and giving respect to whoever we're talking to, regardless of their emotional response. Because then that, again, it doesn't limit us from being honest. We just get to be honest and own our truth. The other aspect is regulating your emotions while you're talking to somebody in the moment, because their emotional reactions are not your responsibility. Not to be mean at all, but you cannot take the burden on for other people because it makes it harder for you. You have to manage your emotions. Slow, deep breaths. You can even prep before you go into the conversation with all of the things that you want to make sure that you say and do, and then be optimistic.
So you talked about expressing yourself, but with respect. And how can we show that respect and provide each other with comfort during the season and express ourselves authentically before conversations get out of hand?
Right. You have a really good point with that, because if we're not paying attention to ourselves, we can't regulate our emotions, right? We're constantly worrying about somebody else. And so before you even go into the conversation, doing some grounding, visualizations, visualize the conversation going well. And then when you go into it, you have to pay attention to any activation that's happening inside your body. I say from like 0 to 10, where are you? If you're at a 3, you're still okay. If you're about a 5, maybe you guys should take a break. And you don't say, we need to take a break, or you need to take a break, but say, I need to take a break because I'm getting upset and I need to slow down and take a step back, because then you're not projecting your emotions on them, making it their responsibility to calm the conversation for you, right? So being able to emotionally regulate in the moment and be aware is incredibly important to be able to have these effective, respectful conversations, not letting it get it out of hand.
And what can the parents do in these kind of situations?
So the opposite, not the opposite, but when we're talking to adult children, people tend to dismiss the fact that we all have child parts. And so making sure that you are, again, respectful, but also understanding and empathetic a lot of things from the past, they come to the surface and we feel as if they are in the present. That's because according to our nervous system, they are. And so when you have adults talking to adults who are actually having child emotions come to the surface, really holding space for them and understanding that this is actually how the brain works in real time. If that memory or that emotion did not come to the surface, then it's actually not going to be able to be healed. So it has to come up in real time. So adult parents who are talking to their adult children, holding space for them and being empathetic, even if it's irrational, it's the biggest part.
So usually during the holiday season and the day of Christmas Eve, there are many periods. For example, the grocery shopping, and then the dinner preparing, and then eating the dinner, and then afterwards sitting by the fire and chatting and maybe playing some puzzles and watching TV. Which period is the most conducive for hard conversations and also more a better strategic period for these kinds of conversations?
So when it comes to having hard conversations that you know that you're going to have, maybe giving the individual a heads up, hey, mom or dad, like when I come over today, we're going to have this conversation. Or if you're the parent, like, hey, I know, things have been strained at some point. Can we go to the side and have this conversation? It gives the other party a chance to prep emotionally so that it's not bombarded on them all of a sudden, out of nowhere, right? But at the same time, understanding that it doesn't have to be as difficult as we tend to make it, because our emotions being suppressed, not owning our truth, being worried about what they're going to say or how they're going to feel, being worried about ruining the entire evening, we tend to get in our head and catastrophize and make it bigger than it needs to be. And so if you don't do any of that and you try to prep as best you can, being respectful, emotionally regulating, being mindful, at some point in the evening, it could potentially come up organically and say, you know what, I was wanting to talk to you about that. Is now a good time for you? Because be respectful to them as well, because technically there's no perfect time to have a hard conversation, right? But we can make it as easy as possible with prep work, working on ourselves, owning our truth, and then letting it organically flow out. But if it doesn't organically flow out throughout the evening, making sure that you have it before the very, very end, because then people don't get a chance to integrate and be comfortable. So just telling them like, hey, before we, get to the end and, close out our evening, I really wanted to pull you to the side and have a conversation. Is it okay?
Dr. Jacqueline Campbell, thank you for your tips. They're very informational.
Absolutely.
Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. Allison Carey here. Every Sunday in December, people riding the subway in Manhattan might get a surprise when a train car from the 30s arrives to pick them up.
NTD's Sean Marshall hopped onto the holiday nostalgia train to ride with some vintage era enthusiasts.
In December of each year, the Metro Transit Authority goes back in time with the holiday nostalgia train. The vintage clothing community gets to put on their best old-timey clothes, riding the line in style in restored old-fashioned MTA train cars. Each year, Alexa Grant dresses up differently and meets new friends and catches up with photographers from previous years.
So my outfit is inspired by the 1940s, like these trains, and I actually had to go on eBay and get my accurate prop. It is from the 1940s, and you can tell because you could actually buy something for 10 cents. So not bad. And it's just a fun time of year to be in costume and celebrating the holiday spirit and get inspired by others, being happy and joyful in this time.
The MTA has come a long way in improving the quiet and smooth ride of the newer cars, but some prefer the style and attention to detail of the classically designed old cars.
They have no charm now. They're all sterile. These trains had personality. These trains are a municipal masterpiece. Really, a municipal masterpiece. Fantastic.
Riding the train is great. I feel like it's part of the experience. The lights go out, they come back on. We all give a little smirk at each other like we're okay, we're still here. feels a little rickety. You can actually feel the history, which is so nice to bring that history alive.
The holiday nostalgia train features 8 cars from the 1930s that served on the lettered lines through the late 1970s. Carrying the classic Depression-era Art Deco aesthetic, they're housed with rattan seats, paddle ceiling fans, incandescent light bulbs, roll signs, and period advertisements.
We're both wearing Chinese traditional costumes from the Song Dynasty, and since it's almost Christmas, I'm just doing the red and I'm doing the classic blue. Yeah. Chinese traditional clothings are very colorful, and they're known for like the texture of the fabric. And if you get closer, you can probably see like under the light, the way that it's like woven. It has a special texture to it.
And to complete the feel, there are different musical groups that appear at one end of the line. The nostalgia train time travels up the F line and down the Q line through Manhattan every Sunday of December from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
Another great report from Sean Marshall, getting out into the city, experiencing the culture, and I think people just long for that analog time where they, it was just a different era where things were a little bit slower, but maybe a little bit more, generous with people and the strangers around you. You had a little bit more, not as such a hustle, a little bit more.
Especially during the holiday season.
I think so.
Yeah, when warmth, family, tradition is probably the most important thing you can have during these days.
I would agree with that, Alice. Absolutely.
And yesterday marked the shortest day of the year. In Luxor, Egypt, hundreds of visitors rose at dawn to watch the sun line up with an ancient temple for the winter solstice.
And many visitors were inspired by the experience as the first rays of sunlight pierced through the temple of Amun-Re inside the temple of Karnak.
Really like it. This is a fantastic morning here. We really enjoyed the show we saw, and it was really nice to see the sun, the rise of the sun this morning here. And this is the first day, so we're expecting to see so much.
I feel a specific energy here, and I'm so happy. I feel like just reborn, fulfilled my heart, my spirit, my life.
The sunrise lines up perfectly on December 21st, the shortest day of the year, marking the beginning of winter.
And the Temple of Karnak was completed over 2,000 years ago, and it houses many different temples dedicated to several ancient Egyptian deities.
The ancient temple is known for its pillars and columns, which resemble the Egyptian lotus flower. The temple has attracted researchers for hundreds of years.
Wow, I'll tell you. So we were just 100 years ago in the New York City subways, and now we're 2,000 years ago in Luxor, Egypt. It really puts things in perspective. While, we got things going on here in the New World here, some of those ancient traditions really go way back.
And especially the Temple of Karnak, it's extremely famous because this is a gigantic complex spanning 61 acres.
Wow.
And it's also the largest religious complex ever built, what you just said, dating back 2,000 years ago by multiple pharaohs. It's extremely ancient and extremely beautiful.
And quite mysterious as well. I think that's why that gentleman was saying. He felt like the energy of that sort of sacred place.
It's like traveling to another dimension.
Indeed, with the sun rising on the shortest day of the year, perfectly in alignment. A lot of ancient wisdom went into the construction of those temples, I'm sure. So. Well, we do have to wrap up the show now, but if you have any feedback or maybe there's a story you'd like to see us cover, shoot us an email at goodmorning@ntd.com. We'd love your comments.
And for around-the-clock original news coverage, watch us live at ntd.com/live or download our app. I'm Alice Tang.
I'm Carrie Dunst. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.